There's so many things that I would like to tell you about that would fit into what our main speaker is going to tell, that we wouldn't have time for that. So I have to tell you just a couple things very quickly. Pardon me. First of all, I found this in my drawer. It's my Queens College student ID from 1964. I graduated from this institution exactly 50 years ago. Some lovely people said that they couldn't imagine that it was that long ago. I must have been 12. But I also saw people wearing buttons when they came in here. So I have one little piece of information that I seldom share unless there's a particular reason for it. In 1962-63, I was Queens College student body president.
Wow.
So I was actually involved in student government, and student government at that time was very much involved in social justice issues. So, as Professor Leach said, I don't like to talk too much about myself, so what I did was I went over to the Queens College archive, and I took out the wonderful newspaper that was the paper in 1964. It's called the Phoenix. And I looked in the Phoenix to see what was going on in Queens College in 1964, in April, not the whole year, just April of 1964. And here's what I saw. And the reason I mention it is because we tell our personal stories to invite you to connect your life with those stories. Does this have any connection to you? How would you compare that with your experiences? So in 1964, this week, there was a debate going on at Queens College led by Queens College CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, and the Queens College Student Association about what to do about the World's Fair, the Flushing World's Fair. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, Flushing World's Fair. Go down Grand Central, and there's the globe and the, parachute jump or whatever it is. And CORE, New York City CORE, was proposing a stall-in. Just stop all traffic on the Grand Central and Long Island Expressway. Why? What was the issue? There was zero non-white construction workers putting up the World's Fair. Racial discrimination in jobs in the borough of Queens and in New York City was horrific, and there were civil rights groups struggling against it, and Queens College students were going to take part in that demonstration because they thought it was the wrong thing. The following week was called Freedom Week at Queens College. It was organized by people who had been in Prince Edward County, Virginia, where Prince Edward County had shut its public schools rather than comply with the Supreme Court decision to desegregate them. And in the summer of '63, Queens College students had gone down there to tutor, and then when they came back via the March on Washington, when they came back to Queens College, they continued to be active, and they were among the leadership organizing Freedom Week, which was an information and recruitment week for people to go to Mississippi. And it was very well done. A lot of people participated. I was off campus that week, but it was the week that Andy Goodman volunteered, and probably about 10 other people from Queens College volunteered to go to Mississippi at that time. Another day or two later at Queens College, as you can see in the Phoenix, a guy named Reverend Milton Galamison was invited to speak at Queens College. Reverend Galamison was a minister in Brooklyn, and he was a leader of a movement because the conditions in schools in New York City were so horrendous that in February of '64, he led a boycott, he and his organization led a boycott of schools, which is considered one of the largest social movements ever to have happened in this country. The number of parents that stayed out of New York City schools protesting the conditions here was, according to some counts, much larger than even the March on Washington. And students here at Queens College wanted to hear, wanted to support, wanted to be part of that movement. So there was a social movement going on at that time. Queens College Student Association, Queens College student groups were part of that. So it was a very exciting time. My parents wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or a businessman, but instead I became a civil rights worker, I became a teacher, I taught here in the Sikh program, I taught in Harlem, and then I gave up classroom teaching to be a union organizer, and I did that until I got a union pension and was able to retire. So we all make decisions in our lives about what values are important to us, what values are important in society, and we try and figure out ways to connect those values to what we can find to be done, not just how we get ahead individually. So that was the period of time in the 60s. So our guest speaker will talk about how he got to be who he was and what he lived through, but that was the scene here at Queens College. Okay, thank you.